Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Trending in Hollywood. I am Scott Menzel, happily joined, as always, by Mr. Dimitri Panos.
Hey, welcome back.
Hello, hello. Yes, sorry
Hello.
we missed last week. It's award season. What else can we say besides it's award season? Things are happening. Lots of stuff going on.
Yes.
And I have a bad echo because I can actually hear it.
You do have a bad echo.
Yep. And
You
I
do
don't
have a bad
know,
echo. You do
I
have a
don't
bad
know
echo.
why.
You do have a bad echo. You do have a bad I was wondering how long it was going to take.
Before I realized that I have a bad echo?
No, that I was doing a bad echo.
Oh, okay. Do I have is it still present right now?
No. No.
No.
No, it's not. No.
Okay. Okay, good.
No.
All right, perfect.
Good.
All right. Sorry guys. All right. So, quick show today. We're going to talk about movies. It's going to be actually the topic for today. And I guess we'll just jump off with Eternals because everyone and their brother seems to be talking about this movie, and here comes Dimitri and Scott with the whammy about the movie. Dimitri, take it away. Take it away. Let the people know what you thought about the Eternals.
Well, I have to say, the MCU, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they finally have done it. They've gone into the weeds with Eternals, and they made a movie only for the die-hard Marvel fans can appreciate. As for everyone else, especially me, Eternals is the worst Marvel movie to date. Yes, Scott, even worse than Black Widow, which we saw together. And if these are the superheroes I'm to follow into the MCU's next phase, well, I hope it's just a phase and they quickly get out of it. This movie, for me, they should have called it insufferable. It really was awful. I've never, I couldn't, it was boring. It's over 2.5 hours long. These were characters that I so little cared. I so very little cared about. There are maybe 2 characters, maybe 3 that I thought were entertaining, but they delivered us characters. They delivered characters that are really, really, really in the weeds, rooted into the Marvel universe, and just to compare apples to apples, I think it's easy to say within the movies, right? You can kind of compare Eternals to Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy, again, is about a group of people. Okay, but Guardians works because there was a focus. Star-Lord is our main character that we're following, and the band, his merry band of creatures, men, women, they're all put together, these misfits, and James Gunn did a really great job in writing this, and their cohesion and coming together, and they're entertaining. And up to this point, I think, Scott, you would agree, I've enjoyed the Marvel movies. And to degrees, they are entertaining. There are some that are better than others. But up until this year, I literally and honestly, I couldn't point to just one movie and say that movie was horrible. I might like it less than some others. But that's about the worst I could have said about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This year we had Black Widow, but again, I would argue that Black Widow's story doesn't affect or have consequence on its phases, right? This Eternals, they're supposed to be bringing us into this next, the 4th Marvel Cinematic Universe phase,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? So, and man, Shang-Chi I enjoyed.
Yep.
But these guys, they bickered. There was zero focus. It was boring. The set pieces looked like every other set piece I've seen. I've seen a lot of this done in movies before. The creatures looked like, what is it with the
So
six-eyed
generic,
creatures?
right? Like
Oh
it
my
just
god,
looked
it's
like kind of
generic.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very generic. And I couldn't get over the fact that I just, there wasn't a character I latched onto that I want to continue to follow. You know, they usurped greatly from, well, a ton of things, but Greek mythology, number one. Yeah, I want to talk about this Prime Directive too, but lo and behold, I don't care. I don't care about these characters. I don't care about following them into whatever adventures they're going to. Celestials, deviants. I mean, it's all about, oh, someone's going to take over the planet again. How do we say it? It was boring. It was 2.5 hours. I was nodding off.
It's all exposition, right? It's all exposition, story setup, but it's all poorly handled.
Poorly handled.
I mean,
poorly written. Surprisingly,
this is the shocking thing. You know, like man, people were giving me flack online for like saying like this was like the theatrical cut of Justice League. And it's very much the theatrical cut of Justice League. It's a fucking mess. And I apologize. I dropped my first F-bomb on the show. Because
in a long time.
Yeah, in a long time. But this movie, actually, the more I think about it, the less and less I like it. And I think that's a really big problem. And for me, what hurts this movie is that you're focusing on 10 characters.
At least 10. I counted 9.
You know, Kit Harington's character kind of like opens the movie and closes the movie, kind of bookends it. But like, there's not much there, and you kind of know that in the second one that they're going to build upon his character, which is fine. But to me, you have this like love story that gets set up, and it's so like just like the most generic thrown together, and it's so poorly told, and it's just like, oh, here they are on a bridge talking. Next minute, here they are in a field having sex. And you're like, what is going on here? What am I watching? And everyone, like, it's strange because the reviews are so mixed on this, but yet it seems like there's so much praise for it. And, like, of these things that, like, oh my God, there's finally a sex scene. It's like, guys, are we really this immature?
That's
like,
the way.
Really, this immature.
Yeah, and have we forgotten about Deadpool?
Yeah, I know.
Like, I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not. Come on, guys. Really? Like, this is what you're looking for? Oh my God, I could not be in more agreement with you. And you know, talking about the time shifting too, going back to Babylon and wherever else they were, and all this BC, AD. You know, they obviously. You know, a main question came up, which is a question that I had, because these people are essentially gods, right? They're eternals. And I was like, well, where the hell were they when Thanos snapped his finger? I mean, they could have helped out the Avengers.
They make a joke about it. Hey, that's solved, right?
Yeah. But then they say, then you learn of that, like in Star Trek has their prime directive. Their prime directive meaning you can't interfere with cultures who are not up to speed with where you're at, and you can't help them along. You have to keep at a distance. Well, they have their own prime directive as well. We're not allowed to interfere with human evolution. Yet, their big cheese wedge black spaceship is out there for everybody to see. In Babylon times, they socialize and interact with the natives in their uniforms. So it's not like you can unsee that, and they're helping them out. Like, I don't care if they're not giving them necessarily technology. They're helping them farm. They get married. So their prime directive goes right out the window. Like, they are not casual observers. They are very casual and hey guys, look at us. And everybody like looks up to them, do this, and it's like, well, what happened to your, wait, you can't pick and choose like how you influence humanity. You can't do that. Like, you could have been a great help with this Thanos thing, with this blip, but that to me pissed me off so much. Like, they've been on the planet, and it's like, but you did have influence. Like, if you're telling me that nobody sees this big spaceship, that this big triangle black thing, and you're hanging over Babylon, I'm like, come on, folks, what does this mean? Like, no. And I didn't find the characters to be engaging. I liked this Makari, who is played by Lauren Ridloff. She's the Flash, basically.
She's the deaf Flash. Do you notice how she's deaf and no one is speaking in sign language at all throughout pretty much all of this movie? Whatever she's, and like there's scenes where like they randomly start doing it, and you're like, well, it's too late, like, because we already had like 7 scenes with her and you didn't do it, so like now you're doing it. Like, what's going on here? I could not believe it. Right. Like, there's literally conversations which she's involved in, and she's standing there and no one's signing it, and I'm like, why is no one talking about this? That this is such a big problem in the movie.
Yeah, but the spin on it is now there's a deaf superhero. I go, who would know until you told us that she's deaf? And I mean, but I liked her. Gemma Chan as Cersei was fine, but there was nobody there who had the charisma of like, say, Chris Pratt, Bautista. Even Rocket Raccoon, voiced by Bradley Cooper, and like that crew, there was a charisma. There's something that you latch on to these people, but it's further proof, though, gods are boring. It's one of the reasons why Superman as a character is kind of boring, because nothing can take him down other than like kryptonite. It's really hard to do. So there was always a problem as to how to do Superman where Superman is interesting and he can actually face like a villain and a foe that can take him down. I think that's why the Christopher Reeve Superman, the one directed by Richard Donner, is so good, because they really did make the character, they didn't like treat him like a god, they treated him like a person, and they gave some humor to it, right? But when you look at the rest of, even, where the hell is Thor, the god of thunder? Like, he's a god. He's not boring, And these were characters too. People like Thor, like Ant-Man. These are people that we have no right really liking. Like, Thor as a comic book was like second tier at best. Yeah. But the movies, they bring these characters to great life. They have great personality, and you go, that was really entertaining. Like, all of them have been entertaining. These people are just bores. Even, like, and I hate to say it, but Richard Madden is Icarus.
Oh, he's terrible. He's the worst.
Terrible.
To me, out of everyone in the movie, he's the worst person. He's like the same one note, everything. And it's like, everyone like watching this can tell that he's bad. And yet, like, for some reason, all these people who are supposed to have all these special abilities and be able to read stuff, they can't tell. Like, oh, here, we're going to take you away to this trip, and we're going to push you towards a cliff. Like what? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah. But that's the other thing that amazes me.
Look over that cliff there. Look over that cliff.
Look over. Hey, do you see that little spot over there? Oops.
Yeah.
Oopsie. That's another thing, too, that really caught me off guard with this movie. The acting, for the most part, across the board, was bad.
Yeah, it was.
Just was bad. Right. It just wasn't good. Everybody had their bad moments, even the great Selma Hayek as Ajak, right? Like,
talk about wasting someone, though, too. I mean, you have an actress like her. I mean, this is the second movie this year. I can't talk about the other one. But this is the second movie this year where like I watch her and I'm like, why? Like, why are you doing this to her? Like, she's so much better than this. She deserves more.
And as much as I hate to say it, the one movie this year that she was actually utilized to great effect was The Hitman's Bodyguard's
Bodyguard.
Wife.
I know.
I was explaining to someone the other day, they're going, really? That movie was good? I go, Selma Hayek had me in tears. She was so vulgar and it was so unexpected. But the way with her accent that she would say things like cock and pussy, I was crying. She relished it. But now I'm watching her, and you're right. She was so wasted. And she's supposed to be the leader of the Eternals. Who am I focusing on in this movie? Am I focusing on Ajax? No. Am I focusing on Cersei? Yes, sort of. Am I focusing on Icarus? It's just, even Fatso. I mean, Fastos.
You're talking. Is that the parody movie one? Fatso?
Yes.
The writers of Scary Movie. Come.
And Brian Terry Henry, who's a funny guy. Like, I like, again, he's wasted.
Let's wait. Let's stop there. So
stop there.
This big thing, right? This is like, oh my God, there's a gay superhero. And you're like thinking to yourself, okay, let's develop this character. We basically say, we show up to this person's house, we see that he has a husband and a kid. Oh, hi, husband. How are you? Oh, good. Oh, let me give you a kiss just to showcase that we're gay. Okay, great. Let's do that. All right. See ya at the end of the movie. Great. Really great character development. I loved it. it.
It was as well developed as Sulu being gay and Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah.
He gets off. Oh, he sees a guy, hugs and kisses him, and then they're off, and Kirk smiles at them. Yeah, I didn't even know that guy was his husband. I thought he was a neighbor, just playing with, like, he just waves at him, and I thought he was a neighbor. And now everybody's
That's why they
making
had to
this
have the kiss, because then you knew.
Yeah, and so another character. Then you had Sprite.
Oh my God!
Okay.
Ain't one no? Oh my! Like just waffle. I like him too. No one pays attention to me.
No, yeah, he reminded me of Kirsten Dunst's
by the way,
character.
They, from what I was told.
Who is they?
The person who plays Sprite. Is it
Leah McHugh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they reminded me of Kristen Dunst's character in Interview with a Vampire, because she was made a vampire when she was like young, and she would never grow, and that became an issue for her. So all of these things I've seen done better in better movies. But what bothered me about this character too, and again, spoiler, this character's like knives Cersei in the back, literally through the back, and then for some reason all is like forgiven. Like, it's not even discussed at the end. It's like, oh, poor Sprite. If you want to be human, I'll make you human. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. This character chose to betray you and literally stab you in the back. And then, that's okay. It's all right. No big deal. And then you have Angelina Jolie. This character is Thena, not Athena. It's Thena. Take off the A. And I'm like, really? Like we don't know you're based off Athena? Like we're not dumb. Like, then why call yourself Thena? I'm like, and her character was okay. I mean, at least hers was set up in a way that, like, she had the most inner turmoil.
Yeah, I would say
guess.
That's right.
And she was fine, but she was with Gilgamesh. It wasn't Gilgamesh the name of the cat in the Smurfs? or something. Am I
Yes, I
wrong
liked it.
at that?
I actually like. You talking about Don Lee's character?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mad Don
the
Soap.
guy who
Yeah,
kind
as
of like,
Don Lee.
you
Yeah,
know, like, and I'm not just saying this because he's Asian, but literally the character reminds me of
Gargamel.
Benedict Wong's character in Doctor Strange. They seem very similar.
They
It's
seem like
really
they could be
weird.
brothers, and
Yeah,
but
I
I
don't
want to
know.
do
Maybe
an
that's what it is.
and I want to do another thing. Well, since Doctor Strange and specifically Shang Chi, what's with all the rings now? Everybody's got rings. So what the hell is going like they all have rings that they make and they put on their wrists and they fight and I'm like going rings are the fashion trend now in the MCU. Everybody's got a ring for power. Apparently, this is the whole brand new thing because they all have that gold. Am I wrong? Like I go, are you? I was like, everybody. What is this? Where the rings come from that Shang Chi has? Like what's going on? Everybody's got
Person.
rings.
That's what you got to wait and see. You know,
I
there
guess.
was, it was Thanos in the last 20 movies of like building all those little the rocks and everything, and now you get
Yeah.
rings. You trade rocks for rings, and here we are.
Azrael's. Yeah, you trade rocks for rings. Zach says Azrael is the cat. You know what, Zach? I'm really happy that I got that wrong because I should not know anything about the Smurfs. I shouldn't. Why do you know that it's Azrael, Zach?
Probably googling it.
But what do I know? But what do I know Gargamel from? What do I know
It
that
is
character
Gargamel
from?
is from it's from the Smurfs too. It's the
Is it
villain.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But you're right. Or Gilgamesh was a decent character, and then you have Kingo. Pew 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 pew. That's all I had in my head. Was he can fire bolts from his fingers, pew pew pew, and make big balls and throw them at people. But he spent the movie going pew 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 pew.
Oh, and I love that
That's,
we have like somebody following him around like this is like in the early 2000s.
oh, his ward. Yeah, but that guy was sort of funny.
You
Karun,
thought so? I mean, I literally was kind of like,
the
this feels
the
like a
one
dated
human.
joke from like 15 years ago.
Yeah,
Like
the
it's
one
like, oh,
human
here's
in the
another
pack.
camera. I have another camera. I have another camera. Oh, but by the way, I love how Kingo just like randomly just walks out of the room halfway through
Well,
the movie and then
yeah,
shows up at the end. Like it was like, hey, you kind of screwed us over and didn't help with anything, but hey, that's
that's
okay.
right. That's Scott. That's another again. When you have Sprite and Kingo doing what they did, it's like, oh, okay. Like you're right. He literally leaves and says, he more or less says, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but I like this Aramish guy, and yeah, I'm not gonna get in your way, so I'm gonna just like, I'm just gonna leave. Goodbye. And he walks away. He doesn't even have anything to do with the outcome of the movie. But yet again, he's tasked with taking care of Sprite now, who is human, and he's tasked to being her guardian.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that makes sense. This is a guy that didn't have your back. None of this movie made sense. And I think that we are making points that are inarguable. Like you can't argue like it happened on screen. And it is some of the worst comic book screenwriting that I've
Oh,
watched.
it's awful. I mean, I'm going to say this. I mean, I know a lot of people have. I mean, I am going to say that this movie is worse than I actually fully admit on the show prior, and I still do. I didn't think the theatrical cut of Justice League was like unwatchable. Like it's a mess, but there were like good parts to it because obviously the vision was there now that we've seen the full cut. There was
Mm-hmm.
aspects of it. This movie just is like everything is about it is a mess. Like there's just
It's
no
worse.
narrative flow. There's the character development is so piss poor. I mean,
It's
you're just
awful.
like you're never given a reason to want to be alone with these characters. And every time a character that you think is going to be developed, something happens and they get knocked out. And that's the weirdest
Yes.
part about this movie is that all the most interesting characters all die in this movie. They all
Mm.
die.
Yeah.
So it's like, why do I want to spend my time with the rest of these characters? Because I don't care. And I think we're really at this weird point right now. People who are, and I don't mean, again, if you like this movie, more power to you. Like I apologize for sounding like my opinion matters more, but I'm really concerned with this conversation that's happening with like, oh, this is representation, and it's kind of like, guys, like this is not like the kind of representation that we should be fighting for. Like we should be fighting for like
No.
good original stories and like representation that like of a good quality like messaging. Like when we had
Right.
conversations about like In the Heights or even in Encanto, like those
Right.
kinds of stories, or like Sylvie's Love, like where you have black representation, like this kind of stuff, not like this hodgepodge of like, we're just gonna throw a bunch of people together and like who cares if the story's crappy, like everyone's gonna like it anyway, and like let's just be forgiving because Marvel did it. And it's like, look at Shazam, right? Like Shazam's a great example. Like at the end of Shazam, you have this great thing of all these different cultures coming together when the kids grow up. And you're going to see more
Right.
of that in the next movie. And it just felt so
Right.
organic and natural. And it was so great seeing a Forster family kind of come together. This is just so
I
half-assed
agree.
and lazy.
It's half-assed, lazy, and shoehorned in. Yash, hello, welcome. You mentioned Dune, and Scott. This movie made me I like Dune better.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
there was a movie that came out where I liked Dune better. I could give it a better review. I mean, I gave Dune the three fingers. I gave it the okay sign. But yeah, this is better than Dune. I couldn't handle this. Zach came up with a fun fact. I did not know this. Kitty Pryde's original X-Men name was Sprite.
Oh, I
Huh,
did not
go
know that.
figure. Yeah, I didn't know that either. But no, it was lazy writing. Just I don't care. I didn't care about any of these people. They were just again, gods are boring, and it was 2.5 hours, and I walked out. It made me very angry. A gentleman who was waiting to come into the theater had asked me, "What did you think of Eternals?" I go, "I thought it was insufferable," and it really was, and that's what I will call it from now on. I found it insufferable. The praise for this, and again, fine, you want to like the movie, but stop. This is not a game changer. This is not a masterpiece by any stretch of the means. My other problem with this movie is the mid credit sequence and the end credit sequence. Again, this goes to my analogy of it being so in the weeds. I didn't know who these characters were and what the fuck. Like, I knew Harry Styles. I go, oh, this is why Harry Styles quit that other movie. He was asked to be in the MCV. I was like, okay. There were such non-issues to me. And then you have, again, we're so deep into the weeds that the end sequence features the voice of Kang, who was in Loki, the television
What do you mean?
series.
Do you mean the character at the end who he says who he's talking to?
Yes,
No,
that
that's
voice
Blade.
is
That's Blade.
no, 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 not Kit Harington. No, the guy who said you're gonna want to think twice about doing that, Mr. Whitman. It was the off-screen voice. I'm pretty sure that was Kang from
I think it's
whoever the
Blade.
actor is. Really?
I think
Well,
it's
I could
Blade.
be
But here's
wrong.
regardless. This is the
But
problem
I
in a
don't know.
nutshell right now is that people
Yeah,
have started talking more about the post-credit scenes of Marvel movies than the actual movie. Right? We've kind of started
yeah.
seeing this happen more and more. Like we talked
It
about
happened
this
this
way
week.
back when with Black Widow, right? Like it's all build
Right.
up for the post-credit scene so they can spin off to Hawkeye, right? And then kind of be like, oh my God, yeah, here we go. And now this is kind of like the reaction from, listen, and I went to the premiere of this. and there was a whole argument about this because Variety ruined the entire post-credit scene, and everyone was up in arms about this. That they ruined that, that Harry was in it, Harry Styles. Remember that happened? Yeah.
No.
So like, but the thing
No,
is
but
that,
I probably saw something and didn't read it on purpose.
yeah,
Like I
but
probably saw a headline
basically
about
they ruined it. Variety ruined it, and I mean, it was funny because the whole reaction of this movie was like, it was fine. Like people, obviously, they've had those rooms with like very very much fans. I mean, there was a whole section in here of like people dressed in like Marvel costumes that like you knew like it didn't matter if we were watching like them just standing around going like, can you pass the cheese? Can you pass the wine? They would still say it was great. But I mean, when they had that showed that credit sequence, I mean, the reaction that it got was just sort of like, oh my God, like it was like the second coming of Christ. And it was so weird seeing that because I felt like that reaction was stronger than any scene in the movie for the people in the audience. And I'm really starting to worry about this because again, I'm sorry, now I'm going back. When we were talking about representation, right? Look at Shang-Chi, right? And Shang-Chi does it right. Like the characters are focused. I know what everyone's talking about, that it's nice to kind of see like a whole bunch of different ethnic backgrounds and together in a movie, but we should want better. We should want better. This is not like some independent movie where they had like $20 million to put it together. This is literally a $200 million movie. We want better. We should all want better. Those actors deserve better. And we should make
they
that a
deserve
priority.
better. And I think the movie-going audience deserves better. However, the people who are championing this movie, I'm sorry, but no. I mean, I'm not saying you can't like it, but don't. Everything that Scott and I have talked about, and even online with us, right? Even online with us, I think everything that we brought up is like, it's indefensible. Like you can't take away from anything that we've said. Because to me it goes from, there is opinion that's involved, absolutely, but when you bring up fact as far as how to write narrative or inclusion and things like that, everything we've said, you can't there's no weak chain, there's no weak link there. It's indefensible. So if you're going to tell me that this, oh, they have a love scene, I don't care. Oh, it's so representative. Yeah, it's really poorly done. And I don't care. And like, again, I didn't care that he was gay. It didn't affect whether I liked or disliked the character anymore. I do, however, and I think it's important to note, I think it's a shame, and I think it's horrible that things like IMDb and even Rotten Tomatoes have been review bombed with homophobic comments because of this, because of that character.
Yeah.
And that what do you give a shit for? Why do you care? It has nothing to do with your. Why do you care? It doesn't affect your life in one way, shape, or form. I just wish they had better. I wish there were better characters. I did not have fun watching this movie. Zach brought up Iron Man 2. Yeah, Zach, yeah, I would say that that's in a lower echelon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but there were parts that were entertaining. Seeing Scarlett Johansson for the first time, knowing that she was going to be Black Widow, like when she kicked the crap out of Jon Favreau's character, I mean, that was fun. It still had fun in its heart, where this one's just like all over the map, and it was so bloated. I don't care where they stay. I don't want to follow these people. That there's going to be another movie, but just bring me back to Thor. Let me enjoy Ant-Man and Wasp, even Doctor Strange. Give me back to those people. Don't worry,
we're getting Doctor Strange 3 soon. Don't worry, it's coming. Or 2, whatever. I don't know what number 2. We're on.
Yeah, and get me back to Guardians, because I want to see how they're going to cope with the death of what's her name?
Saldana's character.
Zoe Saldana's character.
Gamora, I think her name is, right?
Gamora, yeah. So, Star Drew, hey, Dimitri, hey, Scott Menzel, Hey,
Hello,
Star
hello.
Drew. So yes, I'm glad. The only thing that I regret is not being able to watch this movie with you, because that would have been entertaining. Maybe not for the people around, but it would have been entertaining. But it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, God, I think I mean, we really went in deep on this. Um, I don't know where this movie falls. You know, like when we do a ranking. You know, someone was talking about it last night with me, where I would put this on the scale. And I mean, yes, it's definitely in the lower tier. I don't know if I would put it all the way on the bottom. I know you already said you would.
Oh yeah,
It's kind of
easily.
just it's hard for me to be this harsh on a movie that, and I think that's what what the hard thing is, right? I think this is where we're in the industry right now, right? There's so much good that the movie is trying to do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like with introducing things like a gay character or having all this representation. So it's hard to kind of poo-poo a movie when you see that these things that you want to celebrate,
Oh
and I think this is something that really needs to be talked about, is that
well.
people jump to conclusions all the time. They're always like, "Oh, you don't like this movie because it's directed by a female. Oh, you don't like this movie because it features these characters. You don't like the fact that the character's gay." It had, to me, none of this, like Dimitri was saying, I'm against like anyone who's like hating on this movie because it has a gay character, if it has Asian characters. To me, I want this. This is the sort of thing that I want. My problem
Sure.
lies with the storytelling and the script and how it's being told and how these characters are being reflected on screen. They are not interesting characters. These are actors that some of them I have seen before and some of them that I really really do like, and they are given very little to do, and I feel bad for them as a result. It does not mean that I do not like this movie because of the fact that it's a representation piece of superheroes. I would love to love this movie if those characters were actually given something to do and it made me actually connect with them. The problem is that yes, I have this great cast and I'm left with something that gives them nothing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Star Drew, who just popped on, someone who's a regular, along with Yash and Zach. She said it was a beautifully told story, and that's fine. But I just, again, when I compare it to the other Marvel movies, I would agree to disagree on this one. I think from a narrative standpoint, it missed a mark. There again, just as I stated from the top, there was no one for me to connect to and to really care for. So even when Gilgamesh, like when Gilgamesh dies, I felt kind of bad because that was the only relation, like that relationship was built up more than Cersei and Icarus. To be honest with you, I felt so like Gilgamesh actually cared for Athena. I mean, and you can kind of tell, and those two seem to be fairly well together. Um, but yeah, for 2.5 hours, it gave me characters I could have cared less about. I
Well,
thought that they were stolid and
here's a great
boring.
comparison. I have to. I'm sorry to cut you off, Dimitri.
No, no,
I need
no,
to
it's
bring
fine.
this up.
Please.
I need to bring this up,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's the
Please.
first time it's crossed my mind. Suicide Squad, the new one that came out.
Yes,
Eternals.
yes.
Okay, characters we don't really know in both those
Right.
movies, right? We don't know anything about. How come no one is talking about when that movie came out, talking about all the representation that was in Suicide Squad? And granted, full disclosure, I was not a big fan of Suicide Squad either. But if you literally asked me which one was the better movie, Suicide Squad by like a wide margin.
Oh, 100%.
But it
A hundred
also
percent.
does more for the characters that are represented. And again, you have all these different
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds and their stories are developed better, right? You have Ratcatcher number
Absolutely.
two, and you kind of get
Yep.
this great bonding session between her and Idris Elba's character. They almost have
Right.
this father daughter dynamic. And you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of
Absolutely.
other characters from all different backgrounds in this movie. And yet we don't really talk we never really talked about that all that much.
No, we didn't. But there's something else about Suicide Squad that goes back to my Guardians of the Galaxy. Who is it written? Who wrote it?
Yeah.
I mean, James Gunn knows how to put these characters together in such a way that he gives them personality and he's able to flush out stories in a way that we don't even know. Like a lot of it, yeah, it's subtle, sly exposition, but exposition nonetheless. This movie was a lot of exposition. And being that it's the first, like whenever there's an origin story, and this is what I consider Eternals as an origin story, there's always going to be exposition. So I am not going to knock the movie on exposition, so to speak. Uh, it's the first. It's an origin story. It's getting me to understand these characters. My biggest problem was it failed in its exposition because through exposition, I should start to care and want to follow these characters and be entertained by them so that when they come up against danger, I should feel the stakes are really high. And then at any time, if I lose these characters or if they're going through this hell, I need to empathize with them so that I could be on the edge of my seat. These are what good action movies, even good comic book movies or superhero movies are meant to be. This one, I did not care um, about anybody, and the characters, the way they were, it was just a poorly written movie.
Yeah.
It really was. So, I once they were, yeah, once it was over, I was like, okay, I don't know how they're gonna fit in, but this is where we're going now, and I think that the MCU has a bit of a problem because now you have so many people who are watching Marvel. If they miss something, it's not like I didn't know who that guy was who came aboard their ship. I didn't know anything about him, and I'm like, okay, so what? He's Star Fox. Great. Well, I don't care. So, and at the end, I I think the off-screen voice was Kang, the dude from Loki. I think it was. I think it was. Um. So
I
yeah,
mean, it
I
would
don't.
make more sense, but I mean, I can see it being either that or Blade. They both kind of make sense because obviously there's going to be a Blade movie very soon, and they needed some way to kind of incorporate him. But then, which post credit scene is going to be Kane going to show up? Because you know he's got to show up on
Just
something.
well, Star Drew and Yash, you seem to know. Well, I'll throw it to you guys and Zach. I know you're really into comics as well. The very end post credit sequence
When you hear
at
the
the like
voice
very, it was
off
post
screen,
where you hear the off where Kid Harrington is Dane Whitman was going to grab the sword, and he obviously had the sword was like pulling him in. There was like, you want to do that, Mr. Whitman, something to that effect. Does anybody know who that was? To me, it sounded like the guy from Loki, who is said to be the big bad in this Phase 4. Nope, you don't have a clue. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah, both two people.
it
Yep,
is
no.
Blade. It was actually confirmed. What happens? Blah blah blah. I thought the voice sounded like Samuel L. Jackson. The scene was very brief. The voice was very abrupt, but the voice Chloe Zhao confirmed was Mahershala Ali as Blade.
Oh, really? That he's playing Blade? Okay, well, he's a good
I
Blade.
like him. I mean, I'm listen. There's certain. I mean, and that's another thing. I understand when people latch on the actors because I mean, like I'm a huge Mahershala Ali fan. So I mean, like again, I'm hoping that Blade is better than this. I hope Blade is more like Shang-Chi than it's like this.
Hey, Shang-Chi, like I said, I enjoyed myself. I through the Disney Movie Club, I'm gonna get that movie, on Blu-ray because to me, I think there's some rewatchability. The two Marvel movies that I do not have are Black Widow, and there's no way in hell I have any reason to
I'll have
rewatch
Eternals. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
Eternal. So, what other movies did we watch?
Okay, we're just
We're
going to
gonna
talk about. We got 15 minutes left on the show. We're going to talk about Spencer, which is finally opening in theaters this week.
today.
And I mean, Jesus, talk about something that has had nonstop buzz since its premiere at Venice. I mean, the
Mhm.
social media on this movie feels like almost like a Marvel movie with how much people are talking about this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and Neon was originally, I think we reported 2 or 3 weeks ago on this show that they were going to open the movie on about 1,500 screens. I think
Right.
it actually opened on about 900 instead, which is I think a
Hmm.
smarter move on their behalf because you
I
kind of
don't
want to
disagree.
milk it a little bit and kind of see if it can build and build. Um,
I
I
think
know a
so.
couple people saw it yesterday, and I was very happy to hear that the screenings were very full,
Whoops.
both here in LA.
Right.
That
Say
I heard
yeah.
that was like 75% full. So that's a good sign for something like
I think
this.
so.
And
Hmm.
these are the kinds of movies that I get excited about if they actually overperform, because these are the movies that we never see overperform. So I'm hoping it overperforms. Dimitri, I'll
I hope
talk
so.
about it afterwards. What were your thoughts
But
on Spencer?
listen. Okay. First off, it was directed. I always get the guy's name wrong. Um,
Pablo Loreno.
Pablo Larraín. He did Jackie, and right up front, I was not a fan of that movie at all. Didn't like it. And going into this movie, I thought I was going to get more of the same. But to my pleasant surprise, I found it to be actually a very poignant account of Lady Di and her inner turmoil that led to this life altering decision about, well, doing the unthinkable, leaving the royals and leaving Prince Charles. I thought that Kristen Stewart's portrayal of the princess was, I thought it was exquisite. I really did. This was above and beyond just mimicry of an accent. Um, she really got into the part, and she's almost unrecognizable. I believed via her hair and makeup, she played the part. I really cared for her. There were parts of the film that I didn't exactly know where it was going. And to me, it was going down Jackie territory. For me, what saved the film was the ending. The ending I found to be hopeful and uplifting, and to me, it saved the movie by lots, and it made me appreciate the movie more. We really do get into through direction and storytelling and performance. We get into the mind of Princess Di during 3 days. It was 3 days. I believe it was 1991 or 92. 3 days at the Queen's estate for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. And they take a kind of Midnight in Miami approach. Meaning, we know that Midnight in Miami, we know that those characters were friends and they all got together after the Muhammad Ali fight in the hotel room. We just don't know what happened in that hotel room. We don't know the discussion that was going on. And I think Midnight in Miami did a really great job of like saying, "Hey, this could have happened," and the movie made it real. And I know it's a stage play. This is exactly what happens in Spencer. We don't know what went on behind the walls of this big abbey, this Downton Abbey, so to speak. But the way that it's played out, it almost feels documentary like. Like I did feel as if I were there. I felt as if I was experienced that turmoil that Lady Di was going through. There really is nothing subtle about this movie. she was teetering. She was on the precipice of losing her mind. There's a scene, Scott. I'm sure you remember. You've seen the movie 3 times now, 5 times, a dozen times.
3 times, 3 times.
Yeah, there's a scene where she self inflicts a wound with like a wire cutter
Yeah,
on her arm, and it's a pretty intense scene, right? But then the next scene, there is no there's no evidence of the wound on her arm, and so the movie at many times made me question her sanity. And I guess what I really liked about it is how she persevered and she pulled it together to say, I got to get out of here, or ironically, it'll be the death of me if I don't.
yeah. I mean,
And
the movie. I mean, that scene is one of there's like 2 or 3 scenes like that in the movie, right? There's a scene very early on where she's eating dinner and she's looking around the room and everyone is staring at her, and
right,
it's like, I mean, like you said, it's very very obvious what's going on. She's feeling like
right.
she's being suffocated. Everyone
Yeah.
has eyes on her, and she's rubbing her neck, and she's trying to eat her
Oh,
soup,
yeah.
and then she just rips the pearl necklace off, and the pearls go into the soup, and then she just starts, picking up and eating the pearls and crunching on them, like looking like really really freaking disturbed. Um,
Right.
and I love, the movie in a lot of ways, you know, talks about so much without diving into it. I mean, when you talk about like writing and directing,
Hmm.
there's no big moment about like, oh my god, she had anorexia. She's bulimic. She's throwing up.
Right.
Like they're all subtly put in. I'm not. I shouldn't say subtly. They're all put into the movie without like some grand lecture about it. Like it's just
Right.
they're sort of just there. Like you're kind of like she sneaks off into the freezer in the middle of the night and she starts picking like some chicken and some pies and stuff. And then the next scene she's in the bathroom throwing up, and that's kind of it. And there's no like big conversation about, oh madame, why are you throwing up in the toilet, and like
Right.
like it's not there. And I love that about the movie. And even how the characters themselves, you can tell she's very uncomfortable, but no one's really made out to be the villain of this movie. There's not one villain. It's just essentially like this whole, she doesn't fit in, right? This is not
You're
the
right.
life that she
Well,
envisioned, and everyone kind of has this different.
yeah, I mean, maybe I looked at it a little bit differently because I would say that Prince Charles was portrayed as a simp and as a man of anger. To me, he was somewhat of a villain. You had the other gentleman who was house security, and helping to organize some of the things. He was very unsympathetic. I felt.
But was he though?
And
Because there's a point in the movie where like a lot of this stuff kind of comes back to him doing subtle hints to help her.
yeah, I don't. Maybe I just didn't. To me, the most there were two sympathetic characters, or people who were at least compassionate or sympathetic to Diana, and that was the head chef, played by Sean Harris, who I thought was amazing. Sean Harris, you folks would recognize him because he's the big bad in the most recent Mission Impossible movies. However, in this movie, he's kind of unrecognizable, and he kind of is sympathetic towards Lady Di. And then there's the scene, again, not subtle. There's the scene with the Queen, who kind of said, like, she kind of says, yeah, you're being used as commodity right now. And she tries to, she, when she makes that break, the Queen is kind of like, good for you. Like, good for you. Um, it's, again, I put it, the movie opens with her, like, this to me said it all. And it's set up for how this movie was going to be. She's driving herself to the estate and she gets lost. Now, think about this. She gets lost on a journey. Again, whether she was, it was made a big deal that she drove herself, other than going with Prince Charles, right? but she'd been doing this journey for 10 years. And it's supposed to be an estate that's nearby the house she grew up in. And I'm supposed to believe that she actually got lost.
Well, I
But
think
when
that was
she
a showcase of her mental health slipping, right? Because
exactly, well,
yeah.
yes, 100%. But the way that it was handled, because she stops off at that fish and chips joint, which at that point I was kind of craving fish and chips, to be honest. And and everybody recognizes who just walked in through that door, and she's looking for help, and she goes, "Where am I?" And that one question, that one sentence, pretty much predicates the rest of the story, where she's, "Where am I? What am I doing here?" And I just found it to be a brilliant way to open up the movie. And to me, again, I liked it so much better than Jackie, that there was a good denouement for how it ended. Now we know the tragedy of Princess Diana, but at least for this one shining moment, the last, I don't know, say 10 minutes of the movie, playing on a bed of Mike and the Mechanics, "All I Need Is a Miracle." I just found myself like smiling and feeling good, and I felt liberated. I felt liberated for Princess Diana and for her kids. And I walked out of the theater that night, and I was like, wow, this movie was better than I thought it was going to be. And the more I thought about it, the more I really liked it. We I know you're a fan of Kristen Stewart, so um, but all the accolades that this movie and she has been getting are very well deserved. I think it's a performance of her career, and I won't be surprised. You know, she's gonna get a lot of nominations, and
Oh yeah.
perhaps even pull out some wins.
Yeah,
So,
I mean the movie itself. You know, a lot of people have talked about this in interviews with her and stuff. Is that a lot of this is very parallel to her own life in terms of dealing with fame and kind of living life under a microscope. And one of the things that I enjoyed about the movie and why I think it has such great replay value is, as Dimitri keeps saying, the movie itself is not subtle in its messaging. It's very like in your face and you know what's going on. But there is a lot of subtleties in terms of the writing and certain scenes in the movie where like they're not spelling everything out for you. They're kind of hinting at things, and it's up to you to kind of put the pieces together. And one of the things that I really like is the idea of like people being like currency, and the idea of fame and people being like, oh my God, she's not wearing the right dress. You know, like having the life. And why I say it mirrors her life so perfectly is that it's so weird looking at everything, because you have someone like Kristen Stewart who is like pretty much owned by Chanel, right? She's owned like by that. I mean, outfits, makeup, whatever. She's always on the catalog. Everything she's wearing. It's like, so like these outfits are all pre-planned and picked out. So I'm just kind of like looking at it in the Princess Diana aspect of it. I'm kind of like, here's your outfits. Well, I don't really feel like this. Well, this is what you have today. It says that's here's your lunch outfit. And I enjoy that, knowing the celebrity aspect of what it comes with being a celebrity. But
mhm,
I also loved how the movie is not as straightforward as like some of the things that happen, like Dimitri was talking about, where is the character played by Sally Hawkins, Maggie, actually real? Is that character real? Because there is all this mix up multiple times in the movie. She confuses this character, Maggie, with other people, and then
yep,
she is never in a scene with someone else. So you
right,
don't really know if this character is just like this glimmer of hope and this connection that she's
right,
hoping to have this kind of like I can tell all. You don't
right,
know. And I mean, that's why I think this movie is so great, because unlike so many awards movies where like you walk out of them and you're kind of like, all right, I understand why this movie's getting praise. I see it from an artistic standpoint. I very rarely want to watch a movie again, but this movie, I feel like you can go back and you can pick up things, and there's so many messages within it that it makes it easy to go watch it multiple times.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to go back to that scene you were talking about when she's in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
It's not a walk-in closet. It was a walk-in
yeah, like
refrigerator,
at a restaurant.
and
Yeah,
and she literally was downing like the desserts. But it was one time in the movie where she was actually getting pleasure, like having pleasure, like because you could tell that she wouldn't eat. She wouldn't eat at the table, and
yeah,
everything was going so great until that guy
right.
catches her in the act. He's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh shit,
I will, and I love,
oh
like, again, lines
shit,"
of
and
dialogues. Like, I watch so other people don't have to, or I
right,
watch. I don't know if that was the exact quote, but it's something like, I watch so that others don't watch you. Like,
right.
it's like all this weird stuff about like blinds being, like curtains being closed
Oh
and
my god,
all this stuff. Like,
stapled
it's just like,
together. Yeah,
it really showcases like how much of a mental toll everything has. And I mean, it's
yeah.
weird because the estate is almost set up like a haunted house, right? Like everyone, like every
Right.
corner you
It's a
go,
good.
who's going to be there? Hey, check your weight. Hey, what are you doing out here? Hey, I'm just going for a walk. No, you're not allowed to do this. What if someone's out here? Like, it's just, the whole thing is set up almost like a haunted house movie.
And literally, her house is a haunted house.
Yeah,
And she's having visions of Madame Boleyn. So, which again, the parallel is made quite clear
yeah,
about that as well. Yeah, I definitely think it's a movie that it deserves all the accolades it's gotten thus far, and Kristen Stewart's performance is really one to watch because it goes, like I said, it goes above and beyond imitation. It I liken it to Gary Oldman's portrayal of Churchill.
mm,
Like he overcame the fat suit to be the
yes,
character, to he was the character. We bought it. We bought it. Kristen Stewart is Lady Diana. She goes above and beyond the makeup, and it really made like I had forgotten how beautiful Diana was, and her fashions, much like Jackie O. There are many parallels to Jackie. Jackie set off fashion trends throughout the world, and I had forgotten that Lady Diana in the 80s, that she did the same. Everybody had the feathered hair that she wore.
yeah,
Everybody wanted to wear the hat the way that she wore. And she inspired little girls, teenage girls, women, especially especially to break free. But to your point, Lady Diana was scrutinized for the world to see. I mean, she suffered that humiliation of being cheated on TV.
yeah,
She had to cope with that, but that garnered, I believe, the sympathy that when she left, there was like a sigh of relief for her and cheers and saying, "Hey, I don't need to be held under this. Being a royal can be great, but you can get away from it." And I felt the message was great. I thought she was great. The movie deserves the accolades. Right now, it is in my top three of favorite films. It would definitely be in my top five for sure of favorite films of the year. Nothing has usurped Coda yet, though. Nothing for. I still love Coda. I still
no,
do.
Coda's still my number one. I mean, it's really hard to top that movie for me too. I
For
mean,
me,
listen, as much as like this one's kind of like there at two for me right now, I think what it is that Coda just made me feel good the entire time, and
hmm
I think after last year and all those heavy depressing
hmm
movies, um, I just can't get behind these movies that are downers, and I think that's what you were saying about this movie that makes it like almost refreshing at the end, right? Because you're going through this nightmare, going through all this like freaking dramatic stuff, and it's all awful shit. But then you get to the end, and you're just kind of like you get that sigh of relief. You're just kind of like, like thank you. Like
And
I know this is not true, but like it's just like, thank you.
but you don't question her reality at that time.
No, you
Her
don't.
driving with the top down in the Porsche, that freedom. And again, all I need is a miracle. That's all I like. And it just plays as the bed. It was perfect. So, Scott, I could give you my top four of my favorite films like thus far this year. It's, I don't know about my fifth, but definitely my four. Coda being one of them, and then the rest in no particular order, but Spencer, as we're just talking about it, a huge fan of Last Night in Soho.
Yep, me too.
Huge
Yep.
fan of Last Night in Soho. That totally makes it. And believe it or not, Free Guy. Free Guy
Yep.
still remains as one of the most entertaining, fun pictures this year, and I appreciated it for its heart and being entertaining.
Which
I'd have
which
to
is
look back.
ironic because those are exactly my top four too, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
they seriously are. I mean, it's just I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies this year, and I've seen a lot of the festival movies and a lot of the movies that are in award season. And again, I know you're finally seeing King Richard this weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing against King Richard. I think King Richard is an empowering story. I just to me that one is just too by the numbers for me to like kind of like it'll wind up making my top 10 maybe, but it'll be like really like up to the like near the top of it, like where it's like at number 9 or 10, where like if
Right.
anything surpasses it might drop off. But
Uh-huh.
I mean, just compared to everything else, it's just like I don't know. Like to me, like the Netflix awards movies so far, I'm hoping that maybe Tick Tick Boom will change my mind about it, about the movies they have, or maybe even Don't Look Up. Because to me, Don't Look Up looks like a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
I'm hoping one of those two movies change, but to me, the Netflix movies are nowhere even near my top 20 or 25. Like they're like so far like down the
Yeah.
road.
Right.
And I know I feel bad for I mean Searchlight's kind of I'm hoping Nightmare Alley's good,
Me
but
too.
they also kind of have like from coming off like a best picture win last year. I'm not, I was mixed on French Dispatch, Summer of Soul for documentary, sure, but like when you have like a documentary like about Selma Blair, which I think is so much more empowering, and the Sparks Brothers, there's so many musical documentaries. Summer of Soul is
Right.
great in that. I mean, Spark Brothers. I don't know. Documentary is a hard category this year, but again, like not really anything from a theatrical standpoint from a fiction movie that I'm really excited for with Searchlight. In Belfast, I think when you see it, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, that's up there for me, and it's a nice movie that has a little bit of like heaviness to it, but not
Uh-huh.
overboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, Star Drew, I'm not gonna discredit In the Heights. I actually enjoyed In the Heights. I don't believe that it deserved all that backlash.
Yeah.
In the Heights is it's it's definitely a movie that right now I would say that In the Heights could make my top 10. When you talk about West Side Story, right? Potential there. I will have to say it's probably one of the worst posters I have seen in a long time. I saw the poster for West Side Story at the theater last night, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me that Steven Spielberg like okayed this." Like this is one of the worst. It is one of the worst posters I have ever seen that does not sell the movie. If you have Turner Classic Movies, I believe you can watch the Robert Wise West Side Story, which is just every time I watch it or I flip by it, I have to stop on it for a little bit. It's such a beautiful. The colors in that movie are so vibrant. It's so, and I guess, and this is what Spielberg I think is going to have a hard time doing. The original West Side Stories, the actors appear to be having the best time of their lives making this movie. even when they're America, like I'm gonna live in America, like that scene alone, where they're going back and forth, the smiles on their faces just seem so genuine and real. I think I don't know. I'm glad that Spielberg chose to keep it in the 50s. Um, I'm glad he chose to keep it in that, or to have it in that era, because we're not going to be hampered down by technology. So, which I think plays a really big part in the original West Side Story. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to the to watching the experience. I hope I don't come out like really not liking it. But going back to In the Heights, I had a better time than I thought I would watching In the Heights. I thought that it was pretty well done. So yeah,
I still for In the Heights for me, it's a movie that I kind of admire more than I like. It's a
okay,
really weird one for me, because obviously there's certain scenes in the movie that I really love, but
right.
as a whole, and maybe it's just because I've seen so many like musicals throughout the years.
This is
It
true.
just doesn't it's not that like go-to musical for me, but I do
Right.
appreciate it in terms of, again, we talked about this earlier with representation. I think there's so much there to praise. And
I
my
felt.
person, that's a movie where I think it's more about opinion and not about the actual movie. Like that's
Hmm.
just kind of like, did that story connect with you? Did it resonate with you more than, was it a bad movie? Because structurally and story wise, I think all of those pieces are perfect for the movie.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
whether or not you feel a deeper connection with the characters in that, and that's to me, I think what it was is that I didn't feel that way. And I think, again, maybe it's not my it's not made for me in that regard. It's a movie about a cultural celebration, so I can appreciate it, and I like aspects of it, but I don't love it as much as some others would. But again,
Hmm.
if that gets nominated, I would have no problem with it, because again, I think
Me too.
people are very deserving across the board in that movie.
I agree, and I wish the controversy didn't come out and kill it.
Yeah,
It
I know.
deserved it. It really did deserve a far better fate than it got. I am looking forward to West Side Story, but those are my top four. I might have to. I watched No Time to Die again. I've seen it twice at the theaters. I actually enjoyed it more the second time around. Um, and I want to see Last Night in Soho one more time. I just thought that movie was gorgeous to look at, and talk about originality. We have to start praising originality in theater today, because there isn't a whole hell of a lot going on. If you're not a franchise picture, you're not making money. And Last Night in Soho, it didn't break any records at the box office, and I'm very sorry to say, because if we don't support these movies, it's gonna go away. And then Netflix will do them, and they won't do them as good as they won't look as good as Edgar Wright made Last Night in Soho look, and the in-camera practical effects that he did were like flawless and seamless. I couldn't see it. Like it was, but you knew that they weren't doing any, they weren't doing any chicanery going on. It was just great. The performances were great. I can't say enough about Last Night in Soho either. When you talk about how music is used, oh man, it was great in that movie.
I mean,
Really
that
was.
was one
So
of those movies that, like, I think we kind of both agree on, where, um, I mean, that dance scene in that movie is just like one of the best edited together scenes of this entire year. Like it.
oh yeah.
Listen, I know people love Dune, and I'm not, again, not shit on Dune, but like that scene is like, to me, more impressive, because it's not so much of just like scope, right? It's literally like, how the hell did he was able to cut that, and it's just like they go back and forth between the characters, and like you just
Like I'm telling you, that was done in camera. I'm telling you. Like I don't know how, but I want there to be a making of, because it just looked like It was the way that people blocked the camera so that when they turned around, the other person was there, and almost like the other person just fell to the floor, so they'd be out of frame. Like that dance scene alone, or when Anya Taylor Joy's character is walking down the stairs,
Yes.
and Thomasin McKenzie's character is in the reflection. Like, you know that was done in camera somehow. It was just very beautifully done. Jazz scene is magical. It purely, truly was. It's the best I've seen Matt Smith on the big screen. Thomasin McKenzie proves she breaks out of that Jojo Rabbit. She proves that she's a talent to watch for. And Anya Taylor-Joy has proven herself more than many times, and she continues to do so in this movie. And Edgar Wright, I think it's his most accomplished, mature movie. I mean, when you talk about bending genres, he bends genres of noir, of horror, of ghost stories. It's here, it's in there, and he does a fantastic job. And I think it's one of the best, most original scripts that I've seen this year. Period.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Done.
you. All right, my friend.
All right.
Well, have a good weekend. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yeah, thanks for being on board. And Star, you go ahead. You keep on liking Eternals. And Yash, keep on sending us your opinions. Comment. Go onto our YouTube channel. Comment on Trending in Hollywood. If there was something that you couldn't get across in the live conversation, write it out. If you have a minute, one of us will write back to you, because I got to be honest, Scott and I really, really, really appreciate that you're on board with us. We want more. Tell more of your friends, or tell whoever. Come on, because be part of the conversation. Don't be on the sidelines. This is what we love doing the show and talking about the business. Go buy your AMC popcorn at your local grocery store.
Which is a full article on a very notable outlet. Yes. As a news story.
Yep.
And on that note,
goodbye.
Goodbye.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Please.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Oh.